10, 9.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Get ready for two guys who can't handle the truth.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
But we can. Dave Palumbo, Chris Aceto. RXMuscle.com presents Heavy Muscle Radio. Watch out!
Welcome to another episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm joined, as always, by the technician, Chris Aceto, on this April 29th. Actually, it's April 30th, 2018, the last day of the month, Chris, and we're almost into May. I can't, I say this every day. I feel like I'm like 90 years old, but the truth is that time does really fly. My wife says it's because we don't stop working, but I think it's just flying anyway. I really do.
No, I figured that out years ago. It's a percentage of your age, so it is flying.
Yeah.
When you're 5 years old, 1 year is 20% of your age, so it feels that much longer. A day feels like a long day. And when you're 80 years old or when you're 50 years old, 1 day is a percentage of how many days you've been on Earth is nothing.
Yeah, you're right.
It's all relative. I mean, look at,
My dad's going to be 89 this year. I went to see him this weekend. 89 at the end of the year. I went to see him, and the guy next door to him, Bert DiDonato, whose son was a professional tennis player. I might have mentioned that to you. I met him about a couple months ago. Bert died. That was like my dad's sidekick. My dad doesn't remember it's his sidekick, but he knows something. Bert? Who's Bert? Bert from, and he mentioned like some cousin of ours. I'm like, no, Dad. Bert, the guy next door. What do you mean next door? The guy who lives next door to you. Well, next door? I said, Dad, he's in the condo next. That's what I call it, the condo. The condo next door to you. He's literally 10 feet away from you. He's the guy who always goes down to dinner with you, and he's like follows. He was like your shadow. Oh, what happened to him? He dropped dead? I said, yeah, he dropped dead. I said, he had breathing problems. I said he had I think he had lung cancer, the guy, or something like that. So,
yeah.
And then the woman, there's a crazy woman, like a couple doors down from my father, who also died. I don't even know what happened to her. She had a brain tumor, they said. I didn't even know. She was always getting lost. I was always bringing her back to her room. I didn't know she had a brain tumor. And then the woman next to my father, who reminded me of my grandmother, my mother's mother, who my father didn't really get along with, although he had to, because when my mom died, they were kind of, she was helping, helping out and everything like that. But, and my dad didn't really like her, but when she was sick, he went and saw her every single week, just like out of guilt. But she used to always yell at my dad for coming into her room. She disappeared too. I don't think she died. They had to take her to like a I guess nursing care or something like that. Something that's 24 hours. So my dad is who looked like the biggest basket case in there, is outlasting everyone. He's fine. He's thriving in this place. Can't remember anything, but he's doing great. I said to the staff there, I said, thank God you got my dad. I said, you guys would be out of business. I said, of course, the most troubling guy is the one that will last that forever. I said, you'll never get rid of my dad. He'll be here for another 10 years probably. I said.
Yeah, they just put my father in the high maintenance dementia unit.
Oh, they did. Yeah, what's that called? Nursing care or some kind of nursing?
Yeah,
care?
it's really they put him in there because he badgers other people.
Oh, is that what they did? Yeah. Isn't that 24 hours a day? They got a nurse there with him.
Yeah, pretty much 24 hours a day,
It's way more expensive. I hope my dad doesn't get to that point. But, my dad's is pretty funny. He doesn't, he's trying to fake it now. He doesn't remember a lot more than he's letting on. He tries to oh, yeah, I know that. And, but meanwhile he doesn't, because he'd be arguing with me if he really understood, if he really remembered anything. My son, for some reason, finally is warmed up to him a little bit. He still won't touch him, but he
That's funny. That's funny.
Entertains my dad now. He'll do his tap dance with my father. And I'm so glad I taught my son purposely, because I know my dad used to tap dance when he was a kid, and my dad doesn't remember that I show him. So every time I go there, I'm like, Logan, tap dance for Grandpa Sal. And he never will do it. He finally did it. My father's like, I used to tap dance. I'm like, I know. Isn't that an amazing coincidence? Isn't that an amazing coincidence that Logan is tap dancing too?
Well, it's good. It's good. He remembers something. right?
Yeah, no, he does. He look. He still. A lot of people were surprised that he still remembered me. And you know what? He knows Amanda too, but he doesn't know her real name. He calls her Claudia, but he's been calling her Claudia since I met her. So at least he's consistent, right? He thinks that's her name, so it's not like he's like doesn't remember her. He knows exactly who she is. He just thinks her name is Claudia for some reason. My father's brother, my Uncle Frank, had a ex-wife, Claudia. I don't know. They don't look alike, but I don't know why my dad thinks that my wife's Claudia. But I think it's because he thinks I'm his brother, not his son. Even though he knows who I am. He thinks like we're the same age. We're contemporaries, he thinks.
No, you're
What do you talk to your dad about when you go there?
About the only things that he remembers, which is you gotta talk to them about the highlight of their lives, which is when he used to work and be the boss. So there's the power part and the ego part of an amusement park in Maine. I mean, that was that was his life for like 20 years, and
so he really liked it then. That was
So he can remember that stuff.
Was he like Steve Carroll? You know?
Yeah, he was actually. He was a bad boss, badass boss. You know, just treat people not well, which is, you know, that's why I said his ego. That's why he can remember it.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll talk about that, and then, you know, he'll remember short term, like, you know, what he ate or whatever.
Oh, he will. That's amazing. My dad doesn't remember short term anything.
Yeah. And he can remember way back to when he was a kid, which is odd.
Yeah.
You know.
Does he go through these like reviews where he's like going through all the terrible things that happened in his childhood type of thing?
Oh no, he did that my whole life.
Yeah. Did he forget about that? My father finally forgot about his childhood.
He did that on a daily basis, which is why I don't share negativity.
Right. With
people always, you know, with people about things that happen to me, because I don't, you know, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
You know, so that's how I ended up like that, not sharing negativity that's happening. You know, I could break 2 legs and you could say, what's going on? No, everything's good. You know, where was my father could, when I was growing up, break a toenail, and it was like he broke 2 legs.
He was an over-exaggerator. My wife would say that I'm an over-exaggerator, but I don't believe it. My wife's the kind of person that will get bit by a snake and she won't even like say anything. I'll just turn around. There'll be blood running down her neck. You know, I'm like, what happened? I just got bit by a snake. If I get bit by a snake, I scream because I'm like, my nervous system is like hypersensitive. It's not that I'm trying to like act out.
Really? I wonder why. What causes a hypersensitive nervous system?
That's my theory on myself. Because everything is what happens is when I get hurt or something, you know, pierces my skin or something like that, I feel tremendous pain. Now, it doesn't last immediately. It doesn't last, you know, I'm not in agony for a long time, but my nervous system is very fine-tuned. I don't know why, and it must be something in the family because my dad is the same way, and so she thinks I'm over-exaggerating, but I'm really not. You know I know someone who has Raynaud's syndrome, and you know Raynaud's, you lose like the sensitivity in your extremities, and she burned herself. She stepped into a shower. She forgot that she had turned it on full blast hot. And she went in there and she didn't even feel it on her feet because her feet are like numb, and she gave herself like 2nd or 3rd degree burns, you know. So everyone feels things differently, you know, in their environment, you know. So what one person might think, smell something and can't take it, another person that doesn't even bother them. Another person can get stuck by a thorn in a rose bush and scream, and another person they wouldn't even make a flinch. So there's different levels of nervous system, I guess. Attenuation is a good word. Attenuations. And it's like also if you do something all the time, you kind of become numb to it. You know, if you walked on ice with bare feet every day, eventually the ice wouldn't feel that cold anymore. You'd get used to it.
Yeah, it's like you're used to the weather in Maine. You get used to it.
Yeah,
you get used to everything, dude. You get used to everything, right? You get used to like noises, people shouting around. Someone stayed at an Airbnb that I have, and they complained about the noises. Well, it's downtown.
It's like New York City. What's with all the sirens? I didn't sign up for this. Well, guess what? There's a lot of people who have fucking accidents in New York. There's millions of people who live there.
So
it's crazy. So, what did you think of the Dorian Yates Part 3 and 4 interviews that we put up this week?
I thought they were both excellent. I think that Dorian, usually when you do interviews, I say, Dave, you are the best interviewer. But this was just, you could it's like throwing a softball up in the air and waiting for the guy to hit it out of the park.
Yeah, he's good. He's easy.
I mean, he goes on and on every topic, and he shares how he sees the world, and he shares what's in his mind, and he's insightful. He's analytical, and I think that's the thread really. Outside the elephant in the room, the thread from the first part, the second part, the third part, the fourth part is that he's always been one of these guys who analyzes everything and weighs things, which is interesting because it doesn't make a lot of mistakes, it seems.
Right.
At least
he's so analytical, yeah.
Yes. Because it's easy to, quote, overanalyze and make a lot of mistakes. But he seems to be like one of these guys like Jay who overanalyzes and gets to, a more clear answer in their own head.
Sure. Now, let me ask you this question. Obviously, he had the genetics to be Mr. Olympia. Because a lot of people say, well, yeah, Dorian had this great mindset and he knew what he wanted, he visualized it, he made it happen. But he also had the genetics to go along with it.
Of course.
Look, I had the same mindset as he did. I just didn't have the genetic physique to be Mr. Olympia. So, had I had it, I probably would have been Mr. Olympia because I would go to the end of the earth like he did. And I'm sure you did the same thing.
Well, didn't you, Dave? You know what? Someone, just as an aside.
Yeah.
How crazy were you about training when you were training, like when you were young? I thought of that about myself today because I have my hips were hurt, my lower back hurts, and I was thinking, and I saw some young athletes, my kids, and older than them, like 17, 18, just doing crazy stuff.
Right.
And which means they don't feel pain, and I feel pain walking. So,
yeah.
And I remembered back to, God, I remember how excited I would finish a workout, and then 2 hours later, can't wait to be up the next day.
Right. To do it again.
To do another workout, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you need that type of mentality.
And the workout was the most important thing. I don't think guys today, it's that
no,
way anymore.
The pre-workout speed is the most important thing.
Pre-workout, the intra-workout shake, the post-workout shake, the insulin, that's way more important than the workout. To us, the workout was everything. And I'm not trying to downplay what guys do today, because there are guys that train really hard today too. But I'm just saying in majority, like that was like the thing that people got excited about because no one, I guess drugs are just talked about more today, and I guess it's more like, so when people get into the sport, they think that's what it's about. And I think that when we got into the sport, it was like, all right, what are the secrets to training? There must be some training exercises that I have to do to achieve the look. No one thought, well, it's all about the drugs because the drugs will get you there. It doesn't matter what you do in the gym. That's not how we thought. We thought like, look, we know to get big legs, you got to squat. Well, how can I get myself so that I can squat the most possible weight with the best form? Because I know the guy who's squatting the most weight is going to have the biggest legs, by and far, So, when I was squatting six plates on each side, with 600 pounds, for 6 reps, I knew that my legs were big and they were going to get bigger from doing that because I knew no one else was doing that. No one else was doing that. And so that was a good feeling. Oh, same like when I got up to doing, 405 on the incline bench, I never thought I would ever achieve that. But once I did, I said, no one's doing this. There's no way anyone could be bigger than me because no one is lifting this weight with the form I'm using, and no one weighs as much as I do. So that's a very empowering feeling when you get to that point. Now it takes a while to get there. I didn't happen overnight. I was the weakest guy when I first got to the gym, and I had to build up to that. But when you get to that point where you feel like you own what you're doing, I mean, that's very empowering. When I would be backstage at a show, I always knew I was going to be the biggest guy back there, and I knew I was always the most conditioned guy. I knew that I didn't have the best structure up there, and there were guys who were structurally better than me, but that's still a very empowering feeling backstage when you know that you have an advantage over everyone. Because usually when you go to a show, you're like, oh, that guy's bigger than me, that guy's harder than me. That's how you start your career off. And so I think that Dorian must have been so confident in himself because he was the biggest, he was the hardest, he had great shape. He was then when he won the Mr. Olympia, he was Mr. Olympia, and then he had that advantage. I mean, that's hard to dismantle, once you have that going for you, and unless the person gets hurt like Dorian did, and that's same thing with Ronnie when he got hurt. But you know, you can maximize what you do in life by your mindset, you know. And look, you know, you've done this too. I'm sure you've had people tell you, you can't do this. You're never going to be successful. What are you wasting your money? You know, maybe they told you about real estate. What are you, crazy? Investing all this money, you know, leveraging yourself, whatever, borrowing, you know. And when you have something in your mind and you just want to do it, you just go for it, you know. And it usually works out when you're that focused on what you're doing. And Dorian was that way, and it comes off in the interview. Now, obviously, the one part, and I got to bring this up, the one part that was very controversial was in part 4, when I had to ask him about this. We've talked about this on this show before, years ago, when it first happened in 2014.
He paid someone $130,000 to a porn star, right? Oh no, that was a president. Go ahead.
No.
Sorry, I got my controversies mixed up.
That's right. Yeah, but you know, Dorian put a post up on his Facebook about the fact that the Holocaust was perpetrated story by the Jews. You know, it didn't really happen. They didn't really gas him there. It was over exaggerated. And I had to look. I'm half Jewish, which doesn't mean anything really. It just means something that I know what my relatives went through. But I mean, even if I wasn't, I mean, there's not much to deny in the Holocaust. There were millions of people killed. That's a fact, you know. Dorian wants to try to put it off as starvation because they couldn't get this, because the Allies bombed the Germans. They couldn't get the supplies to the concentration camps. I mean, that's just insane, you know. The fact that he said that there was like a what did he say? There was a pool there, like it was like a country club. Like there was a pool and a baseball league there.
Synchronized swimming. I said.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know why he believes that. He obviously watched some videos and did some reading, and whoever, you know, I know the guy. He's the number one Holocaust denier is this guy Irving, and he was the I guess the subject of that movie Denial. If you ever want to see a good Holocaust movie, this guy Irving, who was a scholar, he claimed that you know, that the Jews made this whole thing up and it really didn't happen. He sued this woman for libel. She was a Holocaust scholar. Her relatives had gone through the Holocaust, and she was doing seminars around the country, and he showed up at one of them and was like screaming at her, and then he sued her after that, and she had to defend herself and prove that there was a Holocaust. It was a great movie, by the way. I told Dorian to watch the movie. He's like, well, there's no evidence. I said, well, talk to my relatives. They'll give you the evidence. They'll give you all the evidence you need. So that was a little controversial. And after the interview, Dorian, I actually texted him. He called me, and he said, "Do you think we should pull that out?" I said, "No." I said, "I think because it's an opinion of yours, and I think that's what people really, whether they like it or not, it's what you believe, and you don't never censor anything that you believe." And he's like, "No, I don't." I said, "So, look, I don't have to agree with you on it, and that doesn't mean I don't, you know, admire you, and I think you're, you know, a lot of everything else you said, I agreed with almost everything you said aside from that." I think it's real.
Pause that. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
No, the amazing part of the interview is, I mean, I know you well, I think, and I can, part of the dynamic of the interview is I know you're nodding your head like, yeah, oh yeah, I believe in that, you know, when it comes to so many different topics. And then you guys went off on the whole issue of the using the drugs to, you know, as a therapy, whatever. What was that drug?
Oh,
that
the ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca.
Well,
and I mean, how many people interviewing Dorian Yates would even know what ayahuasca is, let alone use it?
I know. Well, here's the funny thing. Dorian and I went through a very similar, and maybe it was because I tried to emulate Dorian. When I saw Dorian Yates come out and in that 1993, and by the way, you saw that picture, you sent it to me. He sent it to me too, the guest posing picture 6 weeks before the 93 Olympia, where he just was mind-boggling. It was interesting that I didn't know this, but Dorian said in 92 he over-dieted for that Olympia. He could have looked like he did in 93 and 92, which was an interesting...
Dave, I predicted that. I mean,
really?
You could see.
Yeah,
not I predicted it, but you could see in 92.
He was over-dieted?
Yeah. I mean, look at his face. It was a...
yeah.
No pun intended. I won't even say it.
It looked like a concentration camp.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, you know what?
He looked like he was in Auschwitz. Maybe the supply lines got cut off to his bodybuilding.
I mean, his face was just like scarecrow. So, sometimes that's reflective of diuretics, which Dorian was not big on. So it was obviously reflective of, trying to get as detailed as possible. When you listen to the analysis, is that he went through it. Of course he was over-dieted, but it was like a Grand Slam strategy to win because he knew he was going to be bigger than Sean. He knew he went through the list of people that he knew he was going to be bigger than. So all he needed to do for that Olympia is be absolutely inside out.
I think in 93 he could have been bigger too. I think that he even said that too. He could have been Peter McGuff told me you could have been halfway between the guest posing shape you were at the Atlantic States 6 weeks out and what you showed up at. So he probably over-dieted for that show too. And he still looked incredible in 93. I mean, that was the best he ever was.
Yeah.
So imagine, Dorian was overdoing it. People thought that, Dorian was perfect. No, he was over-dieting. The guy could have been better. If Milos would have had a hold of him, Milos would have had him 40 pounds heavier probably on stage with the insulin.
Did you ever ask him about the routine?
No, I didn't. I didn't ask him about that routine he did every single year. But it was, he probably had someone choreograph it for him. But it was great. It was like the techno version of the Excalibur song.
Yeah.
Right?
Haney
Haney did Excalibur, but Dorian did the techno version of it.
Yeah, of course.
And that was before his party years. Too.
I knew you were going to say that. The prelude to the Quaaludes.
Yeah.
Even just the self-analysis of is great.
But I said, I think it was really interesting that he was so focused on bodybuilding to the death of everything else in his life that he didn't care about what would happen around him. And then when bodybuilding was over, he completely had to say, well, who the fuck am I? And I went through something like that. I think a lot of guys go through that. The difference was he had a family when he had a kid with his wife. When he was going through the whole Olympia thing, that had to be brutal because I was single, so it didn't matter what the fuck I did.
No, because that's Sergio Oliva Jr.'s litmus test is he always says, hey, who has kids when they're Mr. Olympia?
Right. Well, Haney did too.
Dorian did. And Dorian had one when he was going through a divorce. That's how hardcore he is. That was funny, huh?
Yeah, that was pretty ironic that he had his daughter when they weren't even together, really. Well, they were together, but they weren't together. And look, everything works out the way it's supposed to. So now he's got nothing. He's got nothing. His kids are grown essentially, and he's just chilling out in the south of Spain there, living the lifestyle. And he wants to open up a retreat, which would be kind of interesting.
Ascawana retreat, Ascawana, whatever.
Here's the difference. I'll tell you where Dorian and I differ. Dorian did all the self-exploration and did the ayahuasca to open his mind up and to see who he was and to be powerful. That's what he became. He became powerful because he knew he had this power within him, and we all have the same power. Just not everyone knows how to harness it. And that power is the mind. If you can channel your thoughts, you can create anything you want. And the trick is to not have any doubt, and that's where a lot of people have tons of doubt, and that's why they don't achieve what they want. He had no doubt. Jay Cutler asked him, "Are you going to win the Olympia?" Yes. Chris, are you going to buy that building? Yes. So if you have no doubt about what you're passionate about, you can't fail. But he wanted to understand what that thing was, what that no doubt thing, what that ability inside of him was to achieve whatever he wanted, and he realized that it's just the power of his mind, and it's like he got to a point where he's like, okay, well, now nothing matters to me anymore. Because I know I have this power, I'm just going to kind of chill now and just try to be like a philanthropist / philosopher. That's kind of like what he's doing now, if you think about it, right? He's a businessman, of course. He's still, he likes to make some money. He's got his own supplement company. I know he's got the book coming out, but that's really what he's doing now. He's kind of like a guru, I know he doesn't like that word, but he's really becoming like a guru.
Oh, he's definitely a guru.
Yeah. I mean, you and me are technically, we give a lot of advice, on this show, but we still have we're still entrenched in the real world because we have family and we have kids and stuff like that. So,
well, Dorian could have or he could have the Fraser show where he could have an RXMuscle Fraser show where he just calls in and. Because I said after seeing you on Instagram this weekend, you should have a Fraser show where you're just giving advice on any topic whatsoever. Dave had an Instagram live show, and I tuned in, and all of a sudden it was people asking an array of questions from Trenbolone and masterone versus growing vegetables versus or compared to giving your son a haircut, rearing children, the temperature, what's compare and contrast New York and Florida's May weather or April weather. It was ridiculous.
Well,
and you would answer every single one, but there were more questions. The questions were being fired off so fast you couldn't answer them all.
I couldn't read them because I was trying to also film while I was doing it. The funny thing is that what I forget is when we do this radio show, Chris, people don't have the ability to interact with us during this radio show. So when I did an Instagram live and you popped in, they wanted if you and I weren't so retarded, we could have linked ourselves and both could have
someone
been
asked, they link credit. I said, I don't know how to do that.
It would have been like us doing the radio show only but live, where people are actually, commenting, which there's got to be a way. I got to figure out a way to do it where we can do it through our TV box at the studio, where we can do it live, like on Instagram, and we can record it so that, because this way you and I can just answer questions. It doesn't have to be a radio show about anything. We'll just take questions, constant bombardment of questions. If we did it once a week, it would be the most popular show probably in the entire industry.
Yeah,
but
we should. Because
I like the fact that people can chime in and say whatever the fuck they want. I mean, if they don't like us or they do like us or they have questions, it's so real. And I think that's really, look, people, we're in the age of reality TV and reality everything, because of social media and because this phone that we have in our hand puts us so close to the entire world. I mean, sometimes I think about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm talking to these people in India all day. I have like a couple of Indian clients and a couple of people I work with there. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm talking to India. I'm communicating with India. I'm working with Indian athletes, on the other side of the world, and it's just nuts when you think about like where we've come, and how easy it is. It's like I'm talking to like remember when we were kids, you would call like your neighbor on your little dial rotary phone, 555-1212. Hey, what's up, Billy? What are you doing? Oh, I'm just watching TV at the house, And my mom's saying, "Get off the phone! I got to make a phone call." Now
we used to get the map out of Italy, and we would call Italy once a month because that's all they could afford, and all the relatives would come over and on one phone and then talk for like six minutes.
It was like $100 probably.
Yeah, it was. I think I can remember a phone bill coming for $100, Dave, and that was in
70s, right?
Yeah, 70s. 77, 76, because it created a dislike or split to this day on who was responsible for that bill, who talked the longest, and has relatives still not talking until this day.
And you remember your parents would tell you, you're going to call China, and you could call China back in the day. You pick the phone up and you hit a couple buttons. You don't know who there wasn't even buttons. If as kids, we would take the rotary thing. We would just do like a million different rotary things. And next thing you know, you're talking to, you're talking to someone in China, and you get billed for that,
Yeah.
So the old, you're going to call China was not really a joke. It was actually.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful. You get the bill, and there's no disputing bills in those days.
Right. But I liked, getting back to the Dorian interview, what I liked about it is that he's so opinionated. He has his beliefs and this is how I feel, and really a lot of the stuff you can relate to. It's very there's nothing really to argue with. It's like, yeah, that makes sense, especially given relating to bodybuilding. So I'm going to definitely get Dorian on some Iron Debates, I think, in the future, because I think that he'd be a great. He's so opinionated. Imagine him and Milos arguing about something.
Well, he's I don't know if you asked him if he would say that he's opinionated at all. Because opinion has a connotation that it could be right or wrong. Well, in his mind, his opinions are factual.
Right.
So that he's just regurgitating facts. That's why there's no emotional connection to it.
Right.
He just spews like, 1 + 1 is 2. Come on, Dave. We got
to write down some of his opinions, his strong opinions, and then we got to find someone who doesn't agree with them, like a Milos or someone like that, to come debate him. That'll be great. Be good TV, I think.
No, there was a good part. I think what did he say? It was his attempt at humor was when he said NASA was wonderful to him. He had like a little smirk to his face, but wasn't he like that to everyone?
Yeah, behind,
He
to
said
their face. Yeah.
Yeah, because NASA was the most genuine, sincere, look you in the eye, pat you on the back, shake your hand, ask you how Amanda and the kids are doing, and then 3.5 seconds later out the door of your house in Florida say, Dave, he stole that house. He's mafia. His father's he stole all his money from his father, and his he's got small hands.
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah, that was NASA. Yes, yes. Yeah, because he was jealous of everyone. He was so jealous, NASA, of Dorian. He hated Dorian. He hated him. He'd never admit it, but
Yeah, I know he did. I know he did.
That ruined him. Now, like,
Well, yeah, Dave,
Casey Viator was destroyed by Arnold.
You hit the nail on the head. The part that affected his physique is the part where you say he hated him.
Yep.
Because it takes and Dorian said this, alluded to it somehow in the interview, when it's okay to want to beat and give a smackdown to Dorian on the bodybuilding stage, but if you start to hate him, then it affects your physique.
Yeah, of course. Negative
and
thoughts.
It affects you, negative thoughts, and it affects your ability to concentrate on your physique, to focus on your physique, to take care of your physique. And this is you know what? Jay Cutler never hated with any fiber of his body or disliked Ron Coleman.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean? There's a big difference.
He just wanted to beat him. That's all.
Yeah, and you could do this. You could easily say this. Jay beat him in 01, then chased him back down in 06.
Right.
That's a long span of time to.
Most guys would have given up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, to be in the game. But if he didn't give up, and his lack of hatred didn't allow him.
Yeah.
To go off the rails, so to speak, and be a shitty bodybuilder, or do something drastic, or do something stupid, or just not improve. Or
these guys were beaten before they even got to the stage. They didn't think that they could beat Dorian, and that's the problem. Flex said it. He goes, "I never saw Dorian as beatable." When I couldn't believe I heard that statement come out of his mouth. He just never. So of course he would never beat him. He's not going to beat him. This guy had these guys licked mentally before they got to the stage. They were competing for second place, and that's why Dorian was so dominant, because he was so strong mentally, and there was no way anyone was going to outwork him, and there was no way anyone was going to outthink him, and that's why these guys couldn't beat him, and that's why Dorian was such a great champion, and why he was so hard to beat. He beat himself, when he got by getting injured. I mean, had he not gotten injured, he might have gone a couple more years. Same thing with Ronnie.
He said that.
Ronnie had that same mindset.
Dorian said that. The interesting part is this. For someone as self-analytical as he is, there's the bodybuilding tunnel and tunnel vision. It's, to be number one, you have to live in a tunnel. But to be absolutely 1,000% the man, you still need to consider advices. And I know there wasn't, he said there was, he was going down a path where nobody had burned before, but there was another part of the interview that was interesting where Weinberger told them, be careful.
Yeah. Well,
and he was like, fuck that. You know what I mean? And I understand that attitude. The attitude is like, not you don't know what you're talking about, but, it's my journey. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be number one. Nobody's done this before. What's worked for me has got me here in the first place. Nobody said it would be possible, so I'm going to continue to push my body to the limit, and that's where the injuries came in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, hindsight's 20/20, and who's to say he wouldn't have got injured anyway, you know what I mean, by being, quote, more careful.
Right. You don't know.
But it's funny that he didn't weigh that at the time. Or maybe he did and discarded it.
But you know what? Also, I think what no one, and this is an interesting topic. Think about all the guys that damaged their bodies or died trying to beat Dorian or chasing Dorian. And Dorian got out unscathed. He's perfect. He's absolutely healthy. He might have a couple obviously injuries that that are still not great, some joint pain maybe. But this guy really wasn't he might have been pushing when he was pushing, but he got out early. He was only 35 years old when he got out.
That's crazy.
And he was
young.
fine. And he was
Right?
fine. And he's in perfect health. He lost the weight. He's down at a good fighting weight, and he looks good, and he's in perfect health. And all the guys that were chasing him, think about all the casualties along the way. Between Mazarazos, and we talked about that, Flex Wheeler's kidneys. And I'm not saying that they were all caused because of, but I guarantee you these guys were pushing harder than he was because they thought they had to catch up to him, and they no one knew what he was doing because Dorian didn't talk to anyone. So people just anticipated, well, if we're doing, he must be doing 15 times what we're doing, drug wise and all this stuff. And the truth was, Dorian just was training harder than everyone else. And he was taking the same drugs as everyone. Maybe he was using a little extra growth because he had cheap access to it, and he was Mr. Olympia. But it wasn't like, compared to what some of the guys do today, it wasn't a lot by any means. But he had that mindset, he had that training ability, and he had the ability to block out what was going on around him, and which is, cost him his marriage, but made him a great Mr. Olympia. A lot of people would say that was worth it. And he said the good thing is he's friends with his wife to this day, so that it worked out that they didn't become enemies. That's always good. And my relationship I was in, my first marriage, when I was dating that girl Barbara, who I wound up marrying, but it was functional when I was bodybuilding. It just wasn't functional anymore when I was when I wasn't bodybuilding. It wasn't something that I was ready to pursue. I wasn't ready to have kids and all that stuff, which is what she wanted. So that's why a lot of marriages end when guys stop competing, because it's like sometimes the competing aspect is part of the whole relationship, and then you stop that, and it's like, well, like Dorian said, what do I got left? I think we were like business partners almost, in this whole thing. So that's an interesting, topic. A lot of bodybuilders, I always say bodybuilders, Ed Connors would agree with me. Bodybuilders shouldn't get married. You shouldn't have serious relationships when they're competing, because it's not functional. But at the same time, it is functional, because what it does is it keeps a bodybuilder very grounded, because they're not out there trying to hook up with girls at night, at nightclubs and shit like that. So a lot of bodybuilders get into comfortable relationships, I think, that are something that they don't feel vulnerable to. They feel like they're in control, and then they don't have to worry about that aspect of their life. And I can relate to that. I don't know if you can, but I can definitely relate to that.
Well, you're doing something that you love at some period of time in your life, and a lot of times people, that who you meet is going to be in that circle, right, most likely, right?
Yeah.
And who you think is good for you is somebody who likes what you do.
Yeah. Look at Greg Kovac's wife. I mean, she was they were the perfect couple while he was competing, because she was doing everything for him. She was facilitating whatever he needed to do, to the point of she had to take him to the bathroom and wipe his butt because he was so big at 400-something pounds. Once he stopped competing, their relationship crumbled and fell apart, because there was that codependency on each other wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting interview. I advise you listen to it more than once. I went back and re-listened to it. I had to let it sit because it was so fresh. I didn't want to listen to it, but I went back and listened to it, and I actually learned a lot more stuff than I did when I was actually doing it, because I was listening with more intent. There's a lot of lessons in life that can be learned from that Dorian Yates 4-part
Oh yeah,
interview.
Of course, tons. That's what I mean. That's what the Dorian Yates attraction now for a lot of people is not that he's 300 with big calves. It's that he says a lot of insightful things.
Yeah.
He's very that people can learn. People can learn something from.
I think that
because a lot of people can live a life and say nothing insightful.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if
I don't mean that negative. It's just true. Some people are more insightful than others, and I think the interesting part is what people find attractive about Dorian now is he's kind of bridged that. Okay, you ever hear that thing like the YMCA? What's that YMCA triangle? Spirit, mind, body.
Yeah.
He had the body. He links those three up, right? Spirit, mind, and body. And he's conquered all three.
I agree. I think that what you can learn from Dorian and I know we're talking about this for a long time, but I think it's worth it. I think this
Like,
interview
he's
is so
kind of
important.
It's not like somebody
He needs to be analyzed.
You just interviewed one that the Nebraska Pro Show and wanted to tell you how many chicken breasts he ate.
Well, you know what it is. It's how like when I don't know if you obviously took English in school and they go over Shakespeare. You could read Hamlet and they go over and you read it and then the teacher will go over every line of the play and every line means something else and you're like, holy shit, I didn't realize there was that much meaning in this play that I just read. I thought it was just a story about
Yeah, well, I just read I never read any. I just read all the Cliff Notes. They said you couldn't, but I said yes, you can.
So the Dorian Yates interview on the surface is entertaining, but there's a lot of wisdom in there, and I wish I would have been able to watch this when I was upcoming, because when I was trying to emulate Dorian when I was competing and coming up, I didn't know anything about Dorian. I just knew what he said about his training and stuff like that. There was very limited access to Dorian. It wasn't like he was not an accessible person. It was not like a guy you saw at a show and you sat down and you talked to him for 2 hours. He was there for 2 seconds to guest pose and he left. And he signed pictures and he spent 30 seconds with each person and that was it. You didn't have access to this guy. So now that I'm going back and remembering all the things I wondered about him, a lot of them I wondered correctly. I just said, this guy is a machine. I said, I got to be a machine. If I'm going to be the best I can be, I have to be just as much of a machine as this guy is. And that means not missing meals. That means not missing workouts. That means not missing sleep. That means doing everything 100% right, because every little percentage point counts. And I go back and we've told the story before. When I went to see Bob Grushkin when I was really just getting into competing and with my friend Doug Wentz, and
he told me I was there like 2 weeks later. I forgot. What year was that? I'll tell you where I was.
1993, I want to say, right after Dorian, probably.
1993. Okay,
I think
so
it was right after Dorian Yates guest post. That's
yeah.
I went out there, and I said, Bob, I posed for him, and I'm like, I wasn't really I had just gotten like a shoulder surgery, so I really wasn't looking that great. I didn't really want to pose for him, but I said, I want to.
I know exactly what he told me. The conversation, Dave. I remember the conversation.
It's weird that he told you that, because it wasn't like I was a big deal at that point.
Yeah, so. but he told me. Jewish Italian guy was here. He's big, and he said he goes to, where'd you go? I forget. School nearby.
Oh yeah,
nearby.
Westchester County Medical. New York Medical College up there in Westchester.
Yeah, and Doug brought him by, and he wants to be a big time bodybuilder and drop out of school. And I told him he's not going to do it. And then he said, he told you, quote, prove me wrong then.
Yep. And I did, which was great. But, because I'm sure 99.9% of Bob's, advice that he gives to people is probably 100% accurate. And,
yeah.
And he probably never has been proved wrong by anyone else, because usually he can spot talent, when he sees it. But I was so intent on achieving a certain, look to my physique that I made it happen. I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you. I just did it through sheer willpower and studying like Dorian did. Just I got down to science. I said I gotta know more than everyone else, because if I don't know more than everyone else, then how can I be better than them? I don't have because my dad would always say, you don't have the arms that these guys have. Like, because when I
Your
first
father
started,
would say that.
Yeah, my father's like, why do you want to be bodybuilder? These guys, you see these guys, these football players with the arms. You don't have arms like that. I said, I want to get them. He goes, but yeah, they have borderline with those arms. I said, no. I said, you could build muscle, Dad. That's what bodybuilding's about. He probably thought I was crazy, but it is what it is. You know how it worked out, and little by little, I gained, 15, 20 pounds a year for 5 years. That's 100 pounds of muscle. It adds up, and it looked pretty impressive after a while, despite the fact that once again, I didn't have Mr. Olympia genetics, but I made it happen. And I tell everyone, I have guys that come to me and they're like, tell me what you think. How big do you think I should be, or how much should I weigh? I said, I'm not going to tell you anything. The minute I say something to you, that will put a limit on what you could achieve. And don't ever put a limit on what you could achieve. Just go in with an open mind, saying, I want to be the best that I can be. If you want to be Dorian Yates, if you want to look like Ronnie Coleman, that should be your image in your head of yourself. It doesn't mean you're going to look like that, but you'll look like your version of that, if that's what you want, if that's what's important to you. But you got to know everything. You can't just know what the drugs are. You can't just know what the diet is. You can't just know the health parameters. You have to know everything. Everything has to be integrated. And that's how you get at anything. If you're good at real estate. I mean, you know everything about real estate. That's what interests you. So you want to read about it. You want to learn about it. You want to be the best at it. And that's why you're successful. If you want to be a good business, if you want to own a supplement company, then you got to know everything about supplements and sales and promotions and social media marketing and all that stuff. And that's the best. If you want to be the best, that's what you'll be the best at. Probably I should put more time into doing that. But to me, I like having a supplement company, but I'm not willing to leverage my entire life to be the best. It doesn't matter to me. To me, if I can make a good living as a supplement company owner and have a very good quality of products, that's more important than being the richest guy in the supplement industry. So that's not my goal. And so I'll never be the richest guy in the supplement industry because that's just not my goal. Talk to Aaron Singerman, that's a different story. His goal is to be the richest guy in the industry. He might achieve that. So that's just life in general. You have to pick what your goal is, and it doesn't. And the great thing, Chris, is about this, and I think Dorian said this: it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks or what anyone else is doing. As soon as you get caught up in what everyone else is doing, you lose focus. And you just said this earlier on yourself, and then you're never going to achieve what you want. You got to single-mindedly just focus on yourself, and it's hard to do that because people are very critical. And they're worried about what other people think about them.
Oh God, are they
right?
worried about what
and
other
that's
people think?
that's the kiss of death,
Listen, I became aware of the people what other people think when I was little. When my grandmother said, I remember she used to say, "What will the people think?" And I didn't know what that expression meant, and I still did. It was like I'm like, what
right.
people? She used to just say. So I was old enough to actually ask her. It was like a fear she had of what people would think of her. But I didn't know that was a fear that people had. I was too young. Mm-hmm. And then I asked her, I remember at some point I was growing up, I said, what people? She said, the people.
The people.
the people. With their Italian accent. I said, what people? She said, the people. So it's funny, but her fear of the people would keep her doing things that she really wanted to do.
Yeah, and that was the mentality of society back then. Women had really not as much power, and Italian women especially, I'm assuming,
Oh, definitely.
They were like they were not supposed to be heard.
Yeah. True.
So it was a different time. Nowadays, forget about it. It's a completely different society. I did an interview with, not to change subject too quickly, but I think it's relevant. I did an interview with Jenny Worth. I don't know if you remember Jenny. When back in the 90s, there was, they had women's bodybuilding, men's bodybuilding. They started a new division called fitness, which is still around, obviously, today. It was a fitness routine. And all the girls that didn't want to be huge bodybuilders did fitness. And most of them sucked at it because they couldn't do a routine. Mm-hmm. But they had a lot of good physiques, and then obviously they started figure because of that, because the girls who couldn't do the routines. But Jenny Worth was like a teenage phenomenon. At 19, she was like winning shows, and then she turned pro at 21, and she actually won the Arnold Classic, which was huge, the fitness international there, and she was second at the Olympia. This was in 2003, and then she disappeared, and no one ever knew what happened to her. Gone for 15 years.
What happened?
You got to go watch the interview. You'll find out what happened.
Wow.
And she was dating some guy, and they said some unpopular things about some of the industry, and I don't know. She just got sidetracked and disillusioned, and she got pregnant. She had a kid, and she just never was. She just was out of the industry, and it was weird. And then she missed it, and she made a comeback last year. That was about 3 years in the making. She was thinking about it, and this year she'll be back. I'm sure she'll be even better. And she had one of the best routines back in the day. And the funny thing about fitness is that, how bodybuilding, you say, these guys like Levroni can't make a comeback because the people are the physiques is so much better today, and it takes too long to get your physique back. The thing about fitness is that the routines today are worse than they were. Worse than they were when she competed.
Why?
So
Why?
Because there's just not as many good fitness competitors. Girls don't want to do it. There's too many other options now. Fitness is hard. You got to prepare a routine. You got to get a costume. You got to practice that routine. it's tough on your body because they're doing these flips on wood, as opposed to like mats, like the gymnastics, girls use. And her routine holds up today. It's still probably better than what most people are doing. So I think she'll be very competitive. It's a very good interview. She actually breaks down and cries during the interview when I bring up the fact that I said, you were at the top of the fitness world. You were ready to be the heir apparent to the Olympia. What the hell happened? And you go listen. I'm not going to tell you everything. I want you guys to watch the interview. So it's a very good interview. We put it up Sunday or Saturday. It was up Saturday. So some people might have missed it because it was the weekend. So if you guys did miss it, just go see that. I think you guys will really appreciate it. I also did an interview with this guy Benoit Lapierre. He's BLP. He was a big time message board guy back in the day. I don't know if when the message boards were big.
Message. I don't even know what a message board was. I know what
the forums. The forums. They had GetBig.com. We had RXMuscle.com. MuscleDevelopment.com. We had forums, and that's when there was no Facebook. This is how people communicated back then. And he was a big message board guy. He was like an online guru, board guru. He would answer a million questions. He was one of the first people I actually remember ever being very open about his drug cycles. Now you got Boston Lloyd, but he was like the first guy who was like telling people on radio shows what he was taking drug-wise. No one did that. And
what year was this? What years was this?
Probably like from 06, I'd say 05, 06, to like maybe 2010 or something like that, in that period. That's when the message boards were real big, and then kind of Facebook took over for that. We still have obviously the RXMuscle forums, but they're not as crazy busy as they were back in the day, because that's where everyone went to comment and talk to each other. But so it was an interesting interview. He had some interesting theories about things. I interviewed him, and then of course I had the Lee Priest, John Romano, Iron Rage. We talked about bridging. I wanted to bring this up to you because I wanted your opinion on it. What do you think about these guys that never go off cycle? They bridge. You got to use. Oh, I'm off cycle. Yeah, I'm only on like 500 milligrams of test and like 400 milligrams of Anavar a week. John Romano said that Lyle Aceto used to bridge like on 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week. He thought that was bridging. That he thought he was off. He'd be like, "Oh, I'm off the cycle." John's like, "Really? You're not on anything?" "Well, I'm only on 1,000 milligrams a week. Testosterone."
The first time I heard the word bridge, I thought it was invented by. It's a ludicrous invention. Technical sounding word. That's the sexiness of it. It sounds like it was invented by Dorian. Somebody who gave it some thought, and that really works. Blah, blah, blah. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. And I think that, it's people don't have the balls to, but I think it's very important to either come off completely or go down to a ridiculously low amount of anabolics.
Well, you know what I think? I think people are afraid to go off, and I think that once you do it, it's like, oh, it wasn't so bad. I don't know why I didn't do this, But people are desperately petrified that they're going to lose the physique that they got. You're not going to lose your physique.
No,
you're only going to lose your physique if you don't eat and you don't train.
No, you're going to improve it. Your body needs a break.
Yeah.
That might be the most insightful thing I said on this show today, actually, more than Dorian. Your body needs a break. It needs a break from training. It needs a break from anabolics. You need to take a break. And if you know nothing about nothing, realize that you can work 100 hours a week. You can do it week after week after week after week, and then that's what a vacation is for. You need to take a vacation and do nothing so that you can go back to being incredibly productive, working 100-hour work weeks or 80-hour work weeks if you're self-employed, for example, or 60-hour work weeks. But you can't continue to push, pull the levers on 60 and 80-hour work weeks without getting completely burnt out. And that's why people go on vacations and do absolutely zero.
Right.
Because their mind needs it. And the same is true, I think, with the body is, you can't prep for a show and not allow your body to take a break and bridge it into another, I just don't believe in it. It's my personal, I don't believe in it. And I believe in coming off, and I don't want to drop names, but I should, and I'm just so tempted to. I know two people this year who made Well, I know a couple people this year made really fabulous improvements, and one guy was off 9 months. I know that's a long time, but he got small. He didn't really get fat. He's got a good metabolism.
Well, Cody Montgomery. You talking about Cody? Cody said that.
No. Cody took 2 years off, I think.
I don't think it was 2 years, but it was about a year probably.
Yeah. But it's good for the body.
Yeah. I wish I would have taken time away from the gym. I came from a running background. Runners never miss a fucking day running.
Well, they always get injured, for God's sake.
Yeah,
Who's more injured than
4
runners?
years or 5 years, I never missed a day running. I would run in the sleet, the snow, the rain. It didn't matter, the 100-degree heat. I did not miss it because I was obsessed. So when I got to bodybuilding, taking a couple days off during the week was like...
Didn't make sense to you.
No, it did, but I did because I knew I grew. So I would take 2 days a week off, and I was like, oh, well, that's more than enough time to take off. So I never took a full week off. Like after a show, fuck that, I was back in the gym Monday. I'm like, I already missed 3 days or 4 days of training. I'm like, I got to get back to the gym. So for me, like 2 or 3 days a week off was like that's plenty. That's my off. But it really wasn't. I probably should have taken 2 weeks off, and just to relax and allow my body to relax. Maybe I'd have better joints now, but maybe not. But who knows? But I couldn't do it. That's the one regret I probably had in terms of training, that I probably should have taken a little bit more time off, like after shows, or at least once a year, giving my body a little bit of a break of doing nothing. I couldn't do it. If I went on vacation, we would go looking for gyms, whoever I was, going on vacation.
Well, listen, I tell people this all the time when they say, I don't dare to take a week off. I said, dude, you don't really improve anyway. Hate to break it to you. But it's either one or two things. Either going to take the week off and you're going to, get very, get worse, but you don't improve anyway much.
Right.
Or you take a week off and you come back and, 6 weeks in, you say, hey, you know what? I grew after taking that week off.
I definitely would have grown. I know I do. Because you know what? I hardly train now, and I make such good gains when I do go to the gym. I only go twice a week, but I don't need to train. You don't need to train as much as people think. And I think Dorian was really the guy who really cemented that idea in my head. And if Dorian hadn't done that whole thing where he only trained, I think, 3 or 4 days a week or something like that, less sets.
You would have never known.
I know. I would have been a chronic overtrainer. I would never have gotten as big because I had that mentality, more is better. When I said, hey, this guy's huge, and he's taking a lot of days off, and he's not training a lot of volume. Maybe I should try that because I'm not growing from doing a lot of volume like everyone else is. I get hurt when I do that. And I did it, and it worked. And so for me, Dorian showed me a different way, and it was one of the first people I listened to from a training perspective. I took other people's advice dieting-wise, and a lot of Bob Grushkin stuff, and a lot of drug advice, probably from Bob and other people too, Bill Phillips and stuff like that. But Dorian was the first guy I listened to from a training perspective because all the guys I surrounded myself with were guys from the 80s and 90s who believed in volume. They would do 25 sets, came from the Mahalik school. I was like, and my body was destroyed with that kind of training. I couldn't respond well to that. You know what I would have loved? I would have loved to seen Ronnie Coleman and train with Steve Mahalik. Mahalik would have tried to beat him into the ground, like training was. I don't think he could have. I think that Ronnie would have outlasted Mahalik, don't you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mahalik would have been like, all right, I'm going to get this fucker. I know we've been training for 3 hours we did 90 sets of legs. I'm going to make him fucking go run a mile now outside, and that'll kill him. Ronnie go run a mile, probably break 5 minutes in the mile, come back sweating like profusely. All right, what's next? That would have been a great. Ronnie would have been great in that. He probably would have grown from those workouts too. I'm sure.
Yeah, Coleman would grow from. Yeah,
he would have been
Coleman
better.
He'd grow from anything.
He was the only person who trained volume and heavy weights.
Chest, shoulders, tries day 1, back and buys 2, legs on Wednesday,
and then repeat.
And then repeat it. Chest, shoulders, try on Thursday, back and buy on Friday, back and buy whatever, legs on Saturday, Sunday go to church.
Yeah. Yeah, right, exactly.
That was his schedule, dude.
Yeah, and it worked for him. It would have destroyed anyone else.
He died on 500 carbs of KFC Masterpiece, which would be his low carbs.
He would tell you, right? He would tell you he was on 0 carbs. He didn't realize that the Masterpiece barbecue sauce had 500 grams in him. Unbelievable.
But you know what? He impressed Dorian.
Yeah, no, Dorian didn't say he was impressed by many people, but he was
that
mine.
in of itself is impressive.
Yeah. Well, after Yates, we never thought we would see another Yates, and then Ronnie shows up, and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe he's upped Yates. That's why people forgot Yates, because Ronnie was so dominant and so huge. If Phil Heath had come along after Dorian, people would still be talking about Dorian today, being the greatest.
Well, Dorian said, you asked him that question, would you be Heath?
He said easily, yeah. He said that so would Flex and Lavroni and Nasser, I think he said, right?
Yeah, it's funny, yeah.
which may or may not be the truth. We'll never know. Now, I heard a rumor, I love to, how I love to bring up rumors, about out at Oxygen Gym that there was almost a fight out there. Now, I haven't really heard anyone talk about this. I don't know if you heard it. It was Ahmad Ashkenani almost had a fight with this guy Chemo, who's one of the trainers at Oxygen Gym. Did you hear any rumblings in your world? I know you have some connections out there.
No, and I have pretty good connections, but now that you put it out there, we'll probably get some emails.
Well, your undercover agents, then they haven't given you any?
Well, I don't want to give up my spies.
No, of course not. But you didn't hear anything about that they might have been a little altercation?
No, I didn't hear.
Yes, you did. I don't believe you. I think you did.
Maybe I'm covering for my spies.
Well, no one knows who your spies are anyway, but Chemo trains people at that gym, right? He's a big time trainer there. And Ashkenani, obviously, is, the 212 Arnold champ.
Mm-hmm.
He was second at the Olympia this past year. And the heir apparent, or at least they would like to believe that, over there at Oxygen Gym. Obviously, great talent. And I don't know what they got. I heard they got into it. That was my sources told me that. I don't know what it was over, but maybe they were not respecting Chemo. I mean, the guy busts his balls training people all day there. So maybe these guys take him for granted.
I'll put in a call. What time is it? It's 1:00 in the morning in New York, so it must be like
in the morning.
9. Yeah, 9. Let me call Rami, see if I can get any information.
Text him.
I'm not supposed to be talking to him, so.
Yeah, that's true. Now, the funny thing is that I always wondered, there's a lot of guys who are superstars working out of that gym, obviously. And then there's guys that train the superstars there. Do the superstars start to maybe get a little, take these guys for granted, maybe?
Ask you just had Nathan on. I didn't see the Nathan interview. Did you softball him?
No, I tried to get some information. He didn't want to say anything. He said he left because, changing, going in a different direction. One of those deals. Who knows? He's not going to...
Blackman, that's a line Blackman told me when he fired me. We're going in a different direction.
He told me the same thing. No, he didn't say that. But I think what look,
going in a different direction. Did he use that with you?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, me and Romano, he told the same thing. Here's the issue.
He used the same lines.
Yeah, he did. Of course,
Does he have a Rolodex? Let's see, firing. I got a Rolodex right here.
He told Valentino the same thing.
Firing. Use. I guess what could be the potential? Tell him. There's only one choice here. We're going.
I'm shocked that I got a phone call. I actually got a phone call and he fired me. Most of these guys get like text messages or emails.
I got a FedEx on Christmas. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's how Cedric got a FedEx too, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
So.
Yeah, that's right.
But so I think what happens is here's what happens. Nathan, they treated Nathan very well. I guess while he was there for a little bit, at least initially. And then I think maybe they weren't treating him so well at the end. That's probably why he left. But they spent a lot of money on him. They believed in him, and they spent a lot of time on him. So I guess even if maybe he became disgruntled at some point and didn't like what was going on there. He's not going to badmouth these guys, and I don't blame him. I mean, they did spend money on him, and they believed in him when no one else did. So, probably helped him get some contracts for himself. So, Bader's doing good stuff over there. We break their balls over there, but
Yeah. No, I agree.
But I think what he's doing.
I agree.
It's like doing an internship, Chris.
I know. I agree, but there's this the oddness is you're right. You're right. They're doing great things over there. They're paying for people, blah, blah, blah. But there's this mum effect. I mean, Reagan was over there. Nathan was over there. De La Rosa was over there. Victor was over there.
It's like a doctor. When you graduate med school, okay, what do? You go and do a residency someplace. these doctors hate the residency because the residency, they're not getting paid a lot of money. They're working their freaking asses off. They're on call. But they're doing it because they know they need to do it to get
to the next
skilled.
Step.
Okay? And then when they get skilled and they feel empowered and they don't have to do the residency anymore, no one stays in the hospital.
That's a good analogy.
They leave. They go do their own thing. And I think that's what these guys are doing. So Nathan got whatever he needed out of that whole experience. And he realized, you know what, I'm not going to really, it's more of the same. I'm not going to get any better. I'm not going to really, thrive here. I'm missing my family. I'm going to go back. I think Regan found out that he just didn't like what was going on there. He was like, all right, this is what's going on here? All right, well, this is not for me. I'm getting out of here. And that's really what happened to him. Obviously, let me get a Regan update for you because a lot of people have been asking me about that. Obviously, he's doing the open class. He's not doing
he's
the
doing
classic,
open.
Yeah. And what's he weighing these days? I saw some pictures. I got to put them up. I have some exclusive pictures. I don't know if Sid put them up on our Instagram. It was with Antoine Vallier, Zane Watson, another client of yours, and Regan Grimes. There was pictures of all three of those guys hitting shots together. What a fucking group they got up there in California. That's a potent group of guys in Canada there. Three fucking genetic freaks, my God.
Yeah, Zane is Zane may try to jump into the 212 New York coming up.
Can he make 212?
Well,
he looks huge.
No. But he will.
Regan looks huge, and so does Antoine. Antoine is going to shock a lot of people in that Toronto Pro. My God, the guy is an absolute...
Yeah, he looks very good. For the pictures I saw, he looks very, very good.
Genetic freak. I know he listens to the show. I'm sure he'll text me after and thank me, but I'm not just saying it because I know he listens. He's...
he looks very, 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 very...
This guy, if he puts
he's got good flow and good lines, too.
Yeah, if he puts it all together, forget about it. He's got no weaknesses.
Well, he's got a square... I know you're going to agree with me.
Yeah.
He's got a square shoulder. Samir would, too. He's got a torso and legs from the front on the crunch shot and the front double that looks very akin to Dennis Newman.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're right.
Put me on that bodybuilding game show.
Very good analogy. I think better legs, maybe.
Oh no, I don't know. Newman was phenomenal legs.
What about a horrible, terrible story that was. I mean, when Dennis Newman won the USA, I don't know if people remember that. It was 1995, I believe, and they were touting this kid is going to be the next coming of Jesus Christ into the bodybuilding industry. I mean, he had every tool set you could possibly want to be a superstar, including like Superman good looks, And fucking kid came down with leukemia, and then right after that, I think from all the chemotherapy he was on, he tore a pec, and he never was the same after that. But
yeah. Do you remember what was it, the Olympia when he jumped on stage?
Yeah, they didn't want to let him compete because they said, oh, he's got to take drugs and he had leukemia, and so him and Lou Zwick put this publicity stunt together that he was going to just run out in the audience with. He didn't even look good. I don't know why they did it. He ran out, started posing in the audience, to disrupt the Olympia, with hopes that they would allow him to then enter the... And, who knows? Wayne DeMilly was probably behind the whole thing at the time anyway. They probably knew he was going to do it, I'm sure. And then they did let him compete after that, but I don't think he was ever... He just was a shell of his former self after that, But... yeah, he was a genetic freak. I think Antoine's going to be good. I think he got a good head on his shoulders now. He obviously had some substance abuse issues. If you haven't seen the interview, I did a great interview with him 2 weeks ago. He talked about how he had been addicted to some speed, and he had been in rehab 3 times, and he went broke, and he lost all his contracts. And it was a great comeback story. And I think that a lot of people can get behind it and relate to a lot of stuff he went through as a young man. He was very young when he had a lot of successes. And now he's going to make this comeback, and I think we're going to see a really, really, really dominant guy enter the bodybuilding arena, and I think he's going to start winning some shows. I don't know if he'll do it this year, but he's a potential, definite top Arnold competitor guy, possibly top 6 Olympian if he can keep his head on straight.
That's saying something. You think he's that good?
And he's 30 years old now. I think he's at the peak of his powers, and I think that his maturity level is way better than it was. And sometimes guys just can't handle these successes at an early age. There's very few Jay Cutlers or Cody Montgomerys. Even Cody, had a nervous breakdown a little bit. So, when you have a lot of success early on, it just you don't know how to deal with it sometimes.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's almost why, like, I think it's almost better when guys get in a little later, like maybe in their early 20s as opposed to their teens. Something just happens when you're a teen. You just like lose your mind for a couple of years. You know, it's just because it's not normal to give up all the pleasures in life when you're a teenager. Teens don't do that. You know, very few people have the discipline to do that. And I think that what happens is these guys do it, and then they hit their early 20s, and they're like, well, I missed my childhood. I got to go out and experience life, you know, and that's what happens usually. You know, how many Jay Cutlers are there?
Not many.
Not many, right? Who can stay like laser focused, you know, on bodybuilding his whole life? Just crazy. But he's having fun now, so that's good. I'm glad that he's making up for lost time. All right, let me just go over a couple shows that took place this past weekend. There was 2 men's physique pro shows. One was the muscle contest. It's funny. It's John Lindsay's show, so I figured it was in California. I'm looking at the placings, and I'm like, everyone's from Brazil. And there's a couple of Paraguay. There's a guy from Argentina, Colombia. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then I realized it was actually a muscle contest in Sao Paulo, Brazil. They held this past weekend. And I guess John Lindsay's, you know, he has the one in Ireland now, and now they're doing one in Brazil. So Diogo Montenegro, who's a great talent, he won that. Felipe Franco, second place, and Andre Smith from the United States, one guy from the U.S., finishes in third. So congratulations to those guys. And then, of course, there was the Jack Titoni had his Nebraska Pro men's physique event, and Hakeem Scott from the Bronx, he wins. Jeff Gabriel finishes in the second position, and Scott Dennis in the third. So congratulations to those guys. Now, what else is going on, Chris, in these coming weeks? We got
New York Pro, that's it.
Well,
dude.
we got the Pittsburgh Pro, right, this coming weekend.
Do they have a 212 or an open? They don't have any bodybuilding, right? Or they probably have classic, right?
They have a 212 usually. Oh, they have classic, right, too?
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Do they have 212? I don't know. They used to have a 212. I don't think they have a 212 anymore. No. They have classic physique. I think they subbed it out. It's going to be a good battle there. There's a good lineup I hear coming in for that classic physique.
I'm sure. All those classic physiques are going to be battles.
I know.
I mean, meaning all
Steve
those.
Morius guy is doing the show. He's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
Terrific talent. I think the classic is exciting because no one knows, you know, who's good and who's not. You know, if you think about it, right? It's like who's going to be the next big name, you know? And there's really no answer to that because every week we get a new great guy, right?
Well, there's well, because you can't dominate with size, right?
You got to dominate with structure, yeah, essentially.
Yes, and you know, there's structurally a lot of great guys out there, and to some degree, it's easy to attain. Oddly enough, you know why a lot of people can't get in great condition when they're in open bodybuilding?
Why?
Versus, let's say, classic. Too much anabolics.
Do you think so?
What is like lodged cement that looks like fat into the body?
Might be right. Might be something to that. Dorian claims that he never, and I don't agree with this, by the way. You know, like I said, the worst person to listen to is the most genetically gifted guy. So a lot of people say, "Oh, Dorian took this, Dorian took that. I should try it." Don't listen to everything Dorian said because just because it worked for Dorian doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Dorian would stop taking like all like testosterone and any heavy androgens.
He probably could have been 20 pounds bigger then.
Yeah, I'm saying he probably sacrificed his look because of
Fullness.
Yeah. He would just take like Anavar and like Masteron and some
non-aromatizing things.
Parabol and all that stuff. And he probably cut the GH out. Probably, like as you said, he probably lost 10 pounds because of that, the fullness. So they have this Pittsburgh Pro show is always the highlight of that show is the guest posers. So I see they got Phil Heath is going to be there as always, Big Ramy, who no one has seen or heard of. I don't know if you've seen any pictures of him. I haven't seen anything recently. Nathan Diasha, which is, you know, he's going to be coming off he's going to be doing New York Pro the week after that, so he'll probably look amazing. He'll probably look the best of anyone on stage, I'm sure. Dexter Jackson, who I don't know what do you know. Have you heard anything with the bicep? Did he get it fixed or?
Oh, that's right. I heard he had the muffin bicep injury.
Yeah, Ruli Winkler will be there and Dennis Wolf, so they're gonna have a star-studded guest posing as they always do there, which is to me that's the highlight of that whole show usually. They have 900 different divisions there for the amateur show, and.
How many days is it? It can't be a one-day show, right?
I think he does it over. Is he doing it over 2 days now? Yeah, I think they do it over 2 days.
Surprised they can fit it into.
Yeah, they move it fast. They have great Gary Udit runs the show for Jim Mannion, and that's Jim's show, but Gary runs it, and they have that crew back there it's like the New York crew. They know how to move things quickly. And that's where we're at this point. There's so much going on at these shows that you gotta move things very, very, very fast. Yeah, it's Friday and Saturday, May 4th through 5th. So Steve Weimer will be there judging. And then what is it? The following week of the week, I think it's 2 weeks after that is New York Pro, right? Or is it the following week? What is it? New York Pro is the weekend of the 19th. Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the lineup of lineups, right? You got Juan Morel, you got Nathan Diasha,
best New York
Justin
Pro
Rodriguez.
10 years.
Yeah, it's going to be, and the classic physique lineup will be just as good in there. So we'll see. It should be. I'm upset I'm not going in one sense, but I'm not in another sense because there's got too much going on. But Chris Aceto will be there representing us, so nothing to worry.
You should come. Can you make a last minute?
No.
It's like people are like, oh, come to Toronto. I'm like, yeah, right. Come to LA for the LA show. I'm like, you're right.
You know, I feel bad. Rick Collins asked me they wanted me to speak at some kind of conference in Canada. And I said, I can't go to Canada. I'm a felon. He's like, oh, it's all lawyers. And he said, they'll do all the paperwork for you for free. Don't worry about it. You'll be back in Canada. I said, well, I got to think about it. It's the end of the year. I said, it's just too much. I can't leave my wife with all this, the 2 kids and running a business. It's just too much. It's the first year is, you know that when you have a kid, the first year is the hardest to go anywhere because they're too needy. And when you have another kid there also as well, it's a nightmare. It's one thing if we had one kid. Like when we had one kid, I was traveling last year because it's not quite as bad, but 2 kids is crazy.
Well, you got 2 kids.
At some point, I need to get my other shoulder replaced. So I don't know when I'm going to do that. I'd like to do that at the end of the year. I'd rather do that than go to Canada.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, as much as exciting as that may seem. But
when you have the shoulder done,
yeah.
Who are you paying for it? Is the insurance paying for it? Is it 50-50?
It's insurance. Yeah, I have. You always have some responsibility on these things, but I have good insurance. I pay. Believe me. The insurance premiums that I pay, you keel over and die. Matter of fact, we just switched insurance companies, and our rates are a lot lower. I don't know why, but when we moved to Florida, they went up. You think everything in Florida is cheap, and not health insurance. Not health insurance. It was really expensive. We had Aetna, and we switched. We're switching to, I think, United Healthcare or something like that.
Yeah. No, you probably get the same shoulder. I was reading a table.
I'll let you finish in a second. My whole stipulation was whatever health insurance I have, the surgeon who does my shoulder has to take that plan. That was that was the proviso,
Yeah, smart. No, I was reading a table of what open heart surgery is like $100,000 in the U.S. and like Canada it's like 40 and like England it's like 8. India it's like $2,200. I'm just kidding. But just the difference in prices around the world.
Sure. It's just that, people more, and you kind of get what you pay for,
Well, I don't believe, do you believe that? That's like saying a condo pick a condo in Manhattan and go to
I do. I think we have the best doctors here.
I don't believe that at one iota.
Why do you think all the doctors who are good come to the United States to practice? Because they make the most money here.
I mean,
I will say one thing, though.
How do you know that? How do you know that all the doctors...
I believe that. If you're going to...
I know, but based on what? I mean, go look at... Here's an example. Drive through Manhattan and then drive through, like, Tokyo or Singapore, and you tell me which city's cleaner and more modern.
No,
and bigger.
Yeah, I know, but Tokyo...
I'm doing a real estate example.
Yeah. But I'm talking about healthcare. I think that it's the most expensive, and I think we have the best doctors here, that too.
By definition, we don't have the longest longevity rate by any means. So
because we live an unhealthy life, but that doesn't mean the doctors aren't good. Doctor,
So we
Chris,
have the best
since when are
healthcare
doctors
in the-
about
We're
helping?
the shittiest. We take care of ourselves the worst, even though
Right.
we have the best doctors.
Right. Since
That's why
when
we
do
all die
doctors
early.
have anything to do with health, Chris? They're just auto mechanics. They just fix you when you're broke. That's all. The key is not to get sick. It's called preventative medicine. That's one thing we don't practice here. That's why the people in Japan live forever. They have preventative medicine there.
Are the doctors smarter in
Cape Coral.
Cape Coral than they are in Stockholm, Sweden?
I don't know. Maybe they are. I think I think we have. In other words, if you had to go for an orthopedic, if you had to get a shoulder replacement, I think the doctors here would be in the United States would be better than going to say, yeah.
I know, but that's like a nationalistic. I mean, it's like an ethnocentric.
No, I think we have the best training here. But I think that if you want to live longer, you should go live in Scandinavia. I think you'll live a lot longer there. Absolutely. I told you.
Even with the worst doctors.
Yeah, because I don't think doctors. Because it's about preventative medicine. You shouldn't need to go to the doctor. The doctor should just be there to tune you up. That's all. Me getting a shoulder replaced is not keeping me alive longer. It's just going to keep me alive in less pain longer. So if I'm going to get my shoulder replaced, I want to have the best guy do it.
So if we didn't have these great doctors in the United States, we'd be dead even earlier.
Right. Pretty much. Yeah. Right. The lifespan would be even lower. Right. So we need good doctors because we're so unhealthy here. That's the truth of it. You know.
I just think it's one of those things like when people go to Miami Beach, you know, which I love, and they say, "Oh, the beach, there's no beaches like Miami." And I'm like, well, that means you just haven't been out of Miami.
Yeah, but you know, it's like going to France. They say the foods in France are all fattier, unhealthy foods, but these people live forever there. Why? Because it's all home. It's all freshly made there. They're eating fresh ingredients. They're not eating any preservatives and this and that, and the soils are not contaminated there, and the waters are not fucking polluted. It's just it's how you live your life. It's it's what you put into your body. We're living in filth here basically. We don't know it, but it's true. The fruits and vegetables have no vitamins and minerals left in them because we've stripped the soil of everything. The animals are fed all the wrong feed in this country. We give them corn when they should be eating natural diets. And of course we're going to be unhealthy because we eat these animals and eat these plants that are being grown in unnatural, terrible conditions.
Yeah, you want to know? Listen, you want to know a testament to that oddness? Is I can remember going overseas once in 1991 and eating something and blurting out, "This is this is incredible. What is this?" It was chicken.
Because it wasn't loaded with steroids.
I thought it was like I thought it was some type of bird. You know what I mean? Like it was a
quail,
chicken in a sauce, and I thought it was like some exotic bird. Yeah. And Dave. That's me, but I'm 20. Maybe I was 23. Yeah. I said, "This can't be chicken." And the hosts were like, "Yeah, it's chicken." And I said, "It just can't be." I needed like proof, and they were like bewildered with the illogic of like doubting that I'm eating chicken. It was farm. It was grown on a farm and
free range chicken. When I went to Italy last year. The food was amazing. I was eating stuff that I would normally never eat, and it didn't bother my stomach. I've told the story before.
Italy has great food, but don't get a shoulder surgery there. They'll botch it.
That's right. But think about it. I was eating foods like with that were made from milk products that normally would destroy my stomach. I had no gastric problems whatsoever in that. Nothing bothered my stomach. Everything I ate there settled good, and they all told me nothing's going to bother your stomach. This is all fresh made stuff. There's nothing. It's grown for 10 minutes before we picked it. 10 minutes before you ate it, and that's just the way it is in Europe, And like I said, it's a different world over there, and brave new world we live here in the United States. One more thing, I was in. My friend Josh came and visited me yesterday. He comes once a year to come fishing here, and he came to my house. He bought my kid a little fishing rod, and we were fishing in my backyard there, which he caught about 3 fish in about 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden he goes, "Holy mackerel! Look at that! There was an alligator."
Oh, I saw the alligator, and I commented on it.
Yeah, alligator. Like it had to be about 3 feet long, maybe. It was like a baby alligator. This thing, usually alligators will when they see people, they take off.
They eat them.
Well, the little ones will take off because they're scared. This thing was hanging out. Like it was like, "All right, you gonna feed me or what?" I couldn't believe it. To me, I was like, this is really kind of like if my kid wasn't there, I would be like, if I didn't have kids, I'd be like, this is kind of cool. I got alligators in my backyard. It's like the ultimate pet, But now I'm like, holy shit, I can't let my kids play by the water because I got to worry about alligators.
The first time we ever pulled up to your house, the first sentence out of my wife's mouth was, "Are there alligators in that backyard?" And I asked you, and you said, "No, there's no alligators."
I'd never seen one, but there's alligators everywhere in Florida. That's the problem. Any waterway, your swimming pool could have alligators in it. They find a way to get there, supposedly. So obviously, if there's little alligators, there's big alligators in there. So now I'm of the belief that they don't really bother anyone. But who the hell? I could be freaking naive. I'm not from Florida. I'm like, they don't want to be bothered with humans or anything like that. But I guess if a little kid was playing by the water, and a big one saw it, might think it was a snack. So I got to make sure my kids, stay away from the water. And the funny thing is, my property is so big, I really can't fence it or anything like that. And these alligators, they climb the fences anyway.
Of
You
course.
see it all the time. I mean, look at Disney. Disney had that alligator in one of their
That's right.
freaking
That's
hotel, little ponds there. So I mean, these alligators find a way. They get into these ponds, even man-made ones. They're not even natural ponds. They'll walk across the land. They're like, oh, look at this, a fucking swimming pool, the bathtub. I'm going to jump in there and hang out there for a little bit. All right, Chris. We're at that time of the show where we are in overtime, as they say on some of these TV shows now, right? Do you notice that now? We're in overtime. Go to the website and check us out.
Yeah, we are on the website, so.
We're on overtime. So, Chris, I'm going to sign off. It's only like 2:30 in the morning on Sunday. Plenty to do. Plenty of exciting stuff coming up this week on RXMuscle. If you guys haven't subscribe to the RXMuscle YouTube channel. Like our videos. Give us your feedback. We love to hear it, good or bad. For now, that we are out of time. Until next week, remember, with Heavy Muscle Radio,
the truth hurts.
Good night, everyone.
Call 911 now!